Mind the Gap, China's Great Education Divide. For the second time in a decade, 15-year-olds in Shanghai have scored at the top of the PISA Global Education Assessment, ranking number 1 in the world in reading, math, and science. The Chinese city has a top-performing system thanks in part to the strong drive and self-belief of its students, says OECD Special Advisor on Education Policy and PISA survey head Andreas Schitzer. In Shanghai, you have 9 out of 10 students telling you, "It depends on me. If I invest the effort, my teachers are going to help me to be successful." Schulzer tells me during a tapping of CNNs on China on location in the city. In Shanghai, the Shanghai exam results have come under fire for shutting out the city's migrant children and not being representative of the city's total student population. But one thing is for certain, the results are not representative of a nation. China as a whole does not take the PISA exam. Data on number of Chinese cities and provinces is not yet published by PISA. China as a whole is expected to be included in the 2015 assessment. While 84% of high school grades in Shanghai go to college, and as they struggle with poverty and debate the opportunity cost of simply going to class, a significant number of rural students start dropping out in middle school. Across the world's second biggest economy, the education system is vastly unequal, but incredibly, Schulzer tells me a child from a poor background in China has a better chance to be well educated than poor, rural students in other countries. The learning environment you would encounter there, the equality is not higher than what you'd encounter in a similar context almost anywhere else in the world, he says. Seated across from Schulzer during the On China panel discussion in Shanghai is Andrea Passanetti, the founder of Teach for China, a nonprofit that brings graduates from China and the US to teach at some of China's most under-resourced schools. Passanetti reveals a particularly bullish view on rural education in China. A lot of these schools tend to be boarding schools, so the school provides not only context for classroom instruction, it also provides a context for personal growth and exploration. Passanetti's views are distinctly out of sync with that of educator Jiang Shiqing, currently the deputy principal of Tsinghua University High School. Kids in the rural regions are at a huge disadvantage. Teachers and schools are under-resourced, he says. The other issue is that in the rural regions, there's a lot of movement, so parents move to the cities, leaving their kids behind in the schools, so there isn't that parental support and guidance that kids need to thrive. Rural schools are under a lot of cultural stigma. No one in China believes they will succeed. Though Zhang's assessment is in line with what has generally been reported about China's rural education challenges, Passanetti calls it an irresponsible perception. It is a huge misconception that local communities aren't invested in the education of their children and grandchildren, says the Teach for China founder. I speak to grandmothers who are illiterate, who live often on $2 or $3 a day, who would do anything and stop at nothing to make sure that the child they have in their home is able to achieve a great education. The big difficulty is that oftentimes they don't know where to start. The Chinese government is attempting to tackle the challenge. In 2010, China released a 10-year a 10-year national education reform plan. Among other objectives, it plans to focus less on tests and get the best teachers into the rural communities that desperately need them. Every discussion you have with Chinese officials about education reform revolves around the question of equality, says Passanati. But John is not optimistic about the prospects for education equality in China. Over the years, it will become worse and worse, he says. The rich and powerful are choosing to detach themselves from the traditional school system. John sees a China where the wealthy will move education resources to a system of new private schools that cater only to them. And that is the dark future China must avoid. If you don't change the school system now, you'll get people buying themselves out of it, says Schulager. That's basically the challenge that China has. China, world's leading tobacco user, moves to ban indoor public smoking. China, the world's largest tobacco consumer, is aiming to ban indoor smoking in public areas by the end of the year. About 1 in 3 cigarettes smoked in the world is in China, according to the World Health Organization, and more than half of Chinese men smoke, according to the Global Adult Tobacco Survey in 2010. Although the nation's health ministry issued guidelines in 2011 to ban smoking in places like hotels and restaurants, they haven't been strictly enforced, according to Xinhua, China's state-run news agency. The China's National Health and Family Commission is now working on a tobacco control law with clear punishments, according to Xinhua. The country's health authorities estimate over 1 million deaths from tobacco-related diseases every year. The WHO warns that if tobacco use is not decreased in China, these deaths will increase to 3 million by 2050. Last month, Chinese government officials were told not to smoke in public places such as hospitals, public transport or schools to set a good example for the public. The latest moves by the Chinese government on tobacco are hopeful, said Dr. Judith McKay, the senior advisor at the World Lawn Foundation, who examines tobacco issues in China. About 32 Chinese cities have passed their own rules to restrict public smoking, she added. China stands on its own in the magnitude of the problem, said McKay. Unless there is a challenge in China, we won't proceed further in reducing the tobacco epidemic in the world. Tobacco use in China has far-reaching consequences, she said. This isn't a health problem, it's a huge economic problem. There's all these things ranging from medical and health care costs, the cost to the families, and there's the cost of second-hand smoke. Longtime rivals China and Japan deploy Harry Potter villain in latest bet. Lord Voldemort, the arch-villain in the Harry Potter series of books and films, has played an unlikely cameo in the diplomatic feud between China and Japan. China's foreign ministry spokeswoman on Tuesday accused a Japanese diplomat of being ignorant, unreasonable, and arrogant. After the two countries upped the stakes in their propaganda war by likening each other to the fictional evil wizard. China's ambassador to the United Kingdom, Liu Xiaoming, first made reference to the character in an opinion piece published by Britain's Daily Telegraph last week. It came in response to Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's December 26th visit to Tokyo Yasukuni Shrine, where convicted war criminals are honored along with other war dead. They move incense to incensed China, which suffers under Japan's military aggression in World War II, and regards the shrine as a symbol of Japan's imperial past. If militarism is like the haunting boatmoot of Japan, the Yasukuni Shrine in Tokyo is a kind of Horcrux representing the darkest parts of that nation's soul, Liu wrote. In the best-selling series by British author J.K. Rowling, a Horcrux is used by Voldemort to hide fragments of the soul in a bid to prolong life. Not to be outdone in this literary war of words, Liu's commentary was followed by another from Japan's ambassador to the United Kingdom, Kachi Hayashi. There are two paths open to Japan. One is to seek dialogue and abide by the rule of law. The other is to play the role of Voldemort in the region by letting loose the evil of an arms race and escalation of tensions, he wrote in the same paper. The repost prompted Chinese state media to warn a war of public opinion between China and Japan is now in full swing. There are no flying cannibals in the battlefield of public opinion, but it still requires the unity of the entire Chinese society to fight this war. The Global Times, a tabloid owned by the Chinese Communist Party mouthpiece, the People's Daily, said on its website on Tuesday. However, Internet users in both countries seemed amused rather than alarmed by the latest and surreal twist in the long-running diplomatic tit-for-tat. I think China and Japan are more like two kids who have not grown up, posted Xiao Wei Huang on China's popular Twitter-like platform Weibo. The method is refreshing and the culture reference down to earth, said another Weibo user with the handle. In Japan, Twitter user EMTYUSUKE welcomed the debate. It is good to use wit and rhetoric to appeal each other's claim without being overly emotional. Abe's visit to the Yasukuni Shrine exacerbated tensions at a time when relations between Japan and China have been strained over the sovereignty of a set of islands in the East China Sea, known as the Diaoyu Island in China and the Senkakus in Japan. Wearable gadgets search for mainstream appeal. Some people think wearable gadgets look cool. Perhaps they rock their Google Glass while out at happy hour, or flash the latest crowd found a smartwatch at the office. Other devices are undoubtedly conversation starters, and the look may be coveted in some circles. For the most part, wearable technology has a fashion problem. At the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas this week, wearable devices are everywhere, and some are finally trying to break out of the gadget world and into the fashion world. Wearables is a broad and fast-growing category that, as the name implies, includes any small piece of technology that can be worn. Research from ABI estimates the wearables market will hit $6 billion by 2018. There are smart glasses, watches, bracelets, brooches, visors, necklaces, and even bras. Straps secure small sensors against arms, chest, head, or legs. They are even wearable for dogs, cats, and children. The tasks wearables accomplish are as varied as the body parts as they they adorn. The technology inside these devices is moving ahead while design side stagnates. Sensors are getting smaller, cheaper, and more advanced. It's possible that the technology will become so advanced that trackers could bypass the design problem altogether by shrinking down the electronic elements enough they can be invisibly embedded in regular clothing, hats, shoes, and belts.